North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. Welcome to the broadcast. Good to have you here. What do we do? Well, we report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That's not the news. That's just my opinion, just as valuable as yours. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate, that is what we do here on the Wells Report. When Donald Trump was found to have several classified documents in his possession, I said that all presidents have classified documents in their possession. I guarantee you that there are classified documents, some at the very highest level, in the possession of President Bush, President Obama, President Carter, President Clinton. All of them have them. So when the entire thing about President Trump's classified materials blew up, and I came out and said all presidents have these things, people said, my gosh, you're just trying to cover up for President Trump. President Biden has been found to, while he was vice president, he was found to have at least 10 top secret classified documents in an old office at an old think tank at the University of Pennsylvania. Now, I know that there is an executive order that was issued by President Obama that talked about classified materials and how the rules were set for the president and their possession of them and the vice president and their possession of them. I suspect that those people making a big deal out of the fact that Vice President Biden had these classified materials as opposed to, and thus would not have the protection of, say, for example, a president that had these documents, will probably find that indeed the vice president was covered. Now, that doesn't mean that he shouldn't have sent them back to the National Archives immediately. That doesn't mean that he wasn't in possession of these particular documents illegally. It just means that while everybody is running with their hair on fire, either on the side of, hey, President Biden had classified materials too, what gives? Or, all President Biden's classified materials were different than President Trump's classified materials. Forgetting about Hillary Clinton's classified materials, but let's move on. And all of this stuff, all these guys running around on fire, my God, Keith Olbermann lost his mind. It's like comparing a dagger to the murder weapon of Jack the Ripper. We believe the murder weapon of Jack the Ripper was indeed a dagger, Keith. I don't know what happened to you, but you used to be pretty smart. Now, just saying. So now what we have is we have Joe Biden in possession of classified documents while he was vice president. Were those documents read by somebody? Well, the University of Pennsylvania is the largest recipient of Chinese donations in the history of the academy. More about that coming up a little bit later on. Did they get to see these documents? I don't know. But let me start at the beginning. This is a CNN article. Several classified documents from President Joe Biden's time as vice president were discovered last fall at a private office, according to President Biden's attorney. Attorney General Merrick Garland has asked the U.S. attorney in Chicago, a Trump appointee, to investigate the matter, a source familiar with the matter telling CNN. And congressional Republicans are also taking notice. The aforementioned people with their hair on fire. Biden's lawyers said they found the government materials in November while closing out a Washington, D.C.-based office, the Penn Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, that then Vice President Biden used as part of his relationship with the University of Pennsylvania, where he was an honorary professor from 2017 to 2019. When he told the story, he was a tenured professor at UP. It's not real. But that's another one of those damnable Trump lies. You know, Trump stood up there and said President Biden was a tenured professor. Oh, wait. No, that was President Biden that stood up and said he was never mind. Now this is where bias comes in. Remember, this is CNN. They broke the story last night after the Wells report was finished. I tweeted out, "We'll be talking about this today," and indeed we will be. Fewer than a dozen classified documents were found at President Biden's office, a source told CNN. It is unclear what the documents pertain to, that has since been updated, or why they were taken to President Biden's private office, Vice President Biden's private office. Federal office holders are required by law to relinquish official documents and classified records when their government service ends. Here's the quote from the White House. The White House is cooperating with the National Archives and the Department of Justice regarding the discovery of what appears to be Obama-Biden administration records, including a small number of documents with classified markings. This, according to Richard Sauber, special counsel to President Biden, in a statement. The documents were discovered when the president's personal attorneys were packing files housed in a locked closet to prepare to vacate office space at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C. The president periodically used this space from mid-2017 until the start of the 2020 campaign. On the day of this discovery, November 2nd, 2022, the White House counsel's office notified the National Archives. The archives took possession of the materials the following morning, so that was November 3rd. Wasn't Election Day November 8th? Just asking. Let's see what else. The discovery of the documents was made by the president's attorney, Sauber added. The documents were not the subject of any previous request or inquiry by the archives. Wait a minute. The law is that you relinquish official documents and classified records when their government service ends. And so the president's attorney, the documents were not the subject of any previous request or inquiry by the archives. Since that discovery, the president's personal attorneys have cooperated with the archives and the Department of Justice in a process to ensure that any Obama-Biden administration records are appropriately in the possession of the archives. I'm sorry, but I do have to point this out. Has anybody asked this Mr. Richard Sauber whether he could or would, or have they demanded that he now say that all the classified documents in Vice President or President Biden's possession are now turned over to the archives? Has anybody asked for that yet? Why not? Have there been any raids at President Biden's personal homes by the FBI looking for more documents? Have there any? Have any been? Have any raids under pre-dawn raids? People with assault weapons. I mean, real assault weapons. People in boats from the Coast Guard making sure that nobody's trying to get out through the water. Has any of that stuff happened yet? I'm sure it will. It's just a matter of time. Oh, okay, here we go. Has Vice President Biden lied about having those documents? No, he just forgot. No, he just had them in a closet. He had them in a closet in an old office when he was vice president. And while the vice presidents are probably covered the same way presidents are with regard to classified information, I'm trying to figure out whether the janitor who had a key to the actual closet, whether or not he had a security clearance. We need to find out. Yeah. Were there negotiations to ensure the return of the documents? No, because they were just found they were found on November 2nd. They were found on November 2nd, right before the election. And nobody said a word. Nobody said a word. Let's see what else. I love it that the Wells report actually cares about the documents. This is a hoot. Well, that's because you were late, Isaac. And I'll say this again. By the way, Isaac's on the chat. I interact with the chat room when I can. Isaac, what I said was when President Trump was found with classified documents, what I said was is that all presidents have classified documents. President Biden has classified documents. They all have them. They all have them now. And so please understand that when I'm talking about this in a fair and equitable manner, as opposed to people running around on fire, pointing at President Biden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you hear me report this story, you're going to hear me report things like people are running around with their hair on fire over nothing. That's thing number one. Thing number two, the only real issue here is this completely blows up the case about President Biden's classified or President Trump's classified documents. It completely blows up the case. It's gone. As if it wasn't enough that Hillary Clinton had 22 top secret SCI documents in her unauthorized server that she destroyed when people had already subpoenaed what was on them, along with all the phones. Okay, I report this story fairly, and I made that a point right off the top. And Isaac, you missed it. Okay? So the simple case of the matter is these documents are obsolete. Have they been declassified at the source? In other words, just because President Trump has a document or President Biden has a document, especially since he was vice president, just because they have a document that has top secret SCI on it doesn't mean it's still top secret SCI. Like I said, the only real implication in this is it completely blows up the case of Donald Trump having classified documents. When I report the story, getting back to that, I'm going to be reporting the incongruences of this. Like, for example, the news reporting is President Trump had 300 classified documents. This is only 10. No. President Trump had 11 top secret SCI documents. These 10 are top secret SCI documents. That's the current reporting. If Biden sat on those documents for 16 months, lied about them after supposedly returning them, denied subpoenas to return them, then we can compare. Well, like I said, we haven't gotten that far in this case yet. Should there be subpoenas for more classified documents in the possession of President Biden while he was vice president, if you want to? Hell yes, there should be. Yes, there should be. Should there be a raid in President Biden's personal homes? No, because he's a sitting president. So please understand, what I'm talking about here is I'm talking about fair, equitable, real, just like we always do. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. I think I forgot to talk about the chat room. You can get to the chat room at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Please do so. I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. Getting back to the coverage of this, the U.S. Attorney in Chicago, John Lausch Jr., is investigating. Lausch was one of the rare Trump-era holdovers that was not asked to resign after President Biden's inauguration. He was appointed by Trump in 2017, unanimously confirmed by the Senate. Illinois' two top Democrat senators said in 2021 that they wanted Lausch to remain at his top post to conclude sensitive investigations, though they did not reveal what those probes might have been. So here's the real gist of all of this. And since it's political, you really have to kind of, knock it down a few pegs in reality. The discovery of the materials comes as special counsel Jack Smith is investigating former President Donald Trump for potentially mishandling classified records at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. Federal investigators have recovered at least 325 classified documents from Trump as part of the inquiry. Now, this is where I was talking earlier. There are all kinds of classified documents. There are all kinds of classifications for official use only. There is sensitive. There is top secret. There is top secret secure compartmented information. That's the highest level that we know of. There are higher levels, but let's not talk about that. Okay? So what they're saying is that there are 10 documents in possession of then Vice President Biden. And there are a couple of other differences. At Mar-a-Lago, all of those documents were locked in a storage room that was seen by the FBI in an earlier visit before the November raid. So the circumstance goes like this. Mar-a-Lago was also being guarded by the Secret Service. The University of Penn office, apparently abandoned for quite some time, was overseen by the University of Penn janitor, who doubtless had a key. And oh yes, the University of Pennsylvania is the biggest recipient of money from the Chinese Communist Party. We don't know why, but we do know that that's true. So they're asking questions. This is on CNN. President Biden has been very critical of President Trump mistakenly taking classified documents to the residence or wherever, and now it seems he might have done the same, said GOP Representative James Comer of Kentucky, who is set to become the House Oversight Chairman. How ironic. It is ironic. It is ironic. Now remember, you got to keep something else in mind here. While we're being just completely fair, okay? What I'm trying to tell you is this, all right? Look, when it comes right down to it, all right? When it comes right down to it, it's a simple case of the matter is that when you have these guys with these documents, it's part of their job, okay? And I don't know whether you've ever been fired from a place or not, but as you go through the stuff that you take home, you realize you got stuff that you don't need. What do? I'll tell you what I did. I threw it in the garbage. That's what I did. Look, all this is the end of the chase for President Trump's classified records and trying to come up with some sort of criminal charge based on that. Because if they charge President Trump, then they have to charge President Biden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, make no mistake, they were able to get rid of Hillary Clinton's mess just by saying she was incompetent. Now, let's see. Chris Grimes has a statement here. All right, and I'll read that to you when we come back as we continue on this story. President Biden found with classified documents. It's not that big a deal. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us today as we go through this, as Mike Renwee on the chat room says, nothing burger. Well, except for politics. And once again, politics should be very low on the list of things that concern you one way or another. The president, President Biden, has been found to have, while vice president, had possession of top secret documents. They were locked in a closet, as they're saying now. Janitors have keys to closets. Anyway, whatever. So all this does is it proves the point that I was making when President Trump got caught with classified documents. All presidents have them. I would suggest that if we go back into the personal archives of vice presidents, every vice president that has served, I would also point out that they have classified documents. Okay, so really, this entire thing was built around trying to embarrass or impugn, I-M-P-U-G-N, impugn President Trump. And what they've done is they've created this unbelievable hypocrisy loop. When I discuss this, I'm going to discuss it the way I discussed it with say, for example, President Trump. I'm going to say, okay, this is really nothing. Now, that's just my opinion. Chris Grimes has a different one. Trump, at least 325 total documents, 60 classified. National Archives first reached out to his lawyers. He's under investigation for obstruction and FBI search conducted after he ignored a subpoena. Okay, let's take that one at a time. 60 classified, many different variations of classified documents. President Trump had 11 TS, top secret, / SCI, special compartmented, special compartmented something or other. Slipped my mind. He had 11. Hillary Clinton had 22. All right. Now, he points out that he's under investigation for obstruction. By all means, continue that investigation. But if I was, say, for example, in the Biden administration, what I would say is, okay, wave off on the issue of holding top secret documents. Just wave off on that. Keep going on obstruction. My biggest hassle with Hillary Clinton was that she was running a server outside of government regulations that had been penetrated by several of the world's intelligence agencies. I wasn't so much concerned about the actual documents themselves, but as Secretary of State, that could have been serious. But it was all waved away because James Comer, Comer of the FBI, sat there and said, "Well, she was just stupid." Really? Anyway, it worked. So she's fine lecturing people on handling, government top secret information. Now, let's see what else. The FBI search conducted after he ignored a subpoena. That's fine, except in May of that same year, President Trump told the FBI, go look, go right ahead. That was before the raid. They chose not to. Why? Why not? So that blows up the obstruction case, in my opinion. But then again, I'm not a legal guy. Okay? So once again, as Mike Renwee says, this is another nothing burger, except when it comes to politics. In the political aspect of this, there's a big problem. There's a big problem. All of the statements made by all of those people in January 6th committee, all of those statements made regarding the President Trump's possession of these documents is gone now. It's absolutely gone. Obstruction, not so much. All of these other things, not so much. But the people that say, for example, that President Biden, as soon as his lawyers found those documents, they turned them over to the National Archives. Okay, so the rough analog on that is if you rob a bank and then you take the money to the nearest FBI office, no harm, no foul, right? Now, I'm not equating the possession of obsolete, even TSSCI, specially compartmented information. Anyway, even if you have those obsolete things, right? I mean, they're obsolete. I'm not trying to compare that with a bank robbery, which is, okay, more serious from a standpoint of crime. But what I am pointing out is that it doesn't really make any difference whether you turn in the evidence of a crime to the authorities. You've already committed the crime, if this is indeed a crime. And remember, all they were trying to do was impugn President Trump. And what they did was they set up this hypocrisy trap for themselves. When you hear me talking about this, I'm going to hassle the people that were running around with their hair on fire, talking about, my God, he's got classified documents, blah, 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 and the media and all of these people that now look like idiots. Make no mistake, they deserve to look like idiots. That's why when people discuss crime, they're usually very, very circumspect about what they actually discuss, that from a legal standpoint. But in a political standpoint, Katie barred the door, anything. By the way, Mike Renouy says that obviously all of these documents found in the possession of then Vice President Biden were gay, because nobody cared until they came out of the closet. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that, even if it's a little edgy. So once again, all right, this broadcast is not about, oh my God, they did this. This broadcast is about, here's the information. You do with it as you choose. Yeah, I'll tell you what I think, but that's just what I think. All this obsolete paper chase was funded by the taxpayer. The government needs real jobs to occupy their time, what that they're paying for, and therefore that's why they're doing this. Whatever. We all justify our jobs in various different ways. And then Mike Renouy then texted on the chat room exactly what's on my mind right now, which is nothing. Okay. So, I don't know what he was trying to say there, but hopefully he'll redo it. All right. Let's get back to the news. Let's get back to the story here. All right. On the Biden classified documents, this also from CNN, among the items from Joe Biden's time as vice president discovered in a private office last fall are 10 classified documents, including U.S. intelligence memos and briefing materials that covered topics including Ukraine, Iran, and the United Kingdom. This, according to a source. Attorney General Merrick Garland received a preliminary report on the document inquiry. When? They don't say. Interesting. A law enforcement officer or source said, and now faces the critical decision on how to proceed, including whether to open a full-blown criminal investigation. Let's talk about that. They should have never opened up a full-blown criminal investigation on President Trump. All those documents were being guarded by the Secret Service. Okay, this is ridiculous. Does it blow up that case? Sure does. Absolutely does. It blows up that case. Merrick Garland, this is not tough for Merrick Garland. He's just going to say, okay, well, that's gone. By the way, Mike says, oh, wait a minute, maybe those documents are also racist. Well, they were printed on white paper. Yeah. And I wonder if the white paper inside the folders used to make snotty comments about the color of the folders they were in. Well, that's probably another discussion for another time. So the situation goes like this. Attorney General Merrick Garland is sitting there at his desk and he watches his case go, except for the obstruction thing. Once again, the president told the FBI while they were on the premises, go in there and take care of it. Now, some kudos. I appreciate the president's lawyers turning those things in. I do. That was a good move. I appreciate them not just trying to make the whole thing disappear. That's also a good move. Now, I'm going to get back into this a little bit later on as we talk about the reactions to this. But the president isn't answering questions about this. He just ignores reporters who shout their questions. That's a mistake. And by the way, if you happen to be associated with the Biden administration on any level, please tell President Biden to say this. Yeah, That was really dumb. That was really dumb. I had those documents, and for some reason, I kept them for souvenirs or whatever. I had those documents, and I forgot all about them. That was really stupid. We're gonna cooperate as much as we possibly can, clean this mess up, and that's that. Please tell the president to do that. Just have him look right into the nearest camera and say, that was really stupid on my part. That was a dumb move. But we'll fix it. We'll get it all cleaned up and so on and so forth. By the way, I'm announcing that I'm going to stop chasing President Trump for that because I said on a 60 Minutes interview that it was absolutely irresponsible, and I got bit in the butt by my own statement. Next question. That's really all you got to do. It's really all you got to do. Because honest to goodness, this is not an issue. Langston, one of my friends on this broadcast, says this: it's one thing to have documents, it's another to lie about having them and refuse to return them. Well, we have to go back to who's calling President Trump a liar. Okay, once again, those are political sources. Nobody in the legal realm has said to President Trump, you committed perjury. Okay, that hasn't happened yet. We'll see. Trump did not allow the FBI to casually walk into Mar-a-Lago and get documents. Trump gave them what he wanted to have. That's not true. In May, he was standing in front of his lawyers and the FBI agents that had come and said, let him look. He opened it up. It was a news. And then he says, no comparison, nice try. Well, of course it's a good comparison. What are you talking about? See, this is where partisans turn the part of their brain off that controls critical thinking and logic and turn on the political part of their brain, which denies. Langston is too young to remember deny. That's a Clinton era thing. But I do remember them. So the problem with this, all of this is that they should have never gone after Trump on this, because there's always a fight between the National Archives and presidents regarding papers. There's always a fight. It just never makes the newspapers. And I guarantee you that every president that is currently sitting there around watching all of this is doing one of two things. One, Billy, go back through all my papers, make sure I don't have anything I'm not supposed to have. Or two, Billy, where do you want to play golf today? This is, as Mike Renwee brilliantly pointed out, a nothing burger. If Trump really had all the documents, why did the FBI not want cameras to prove that they actually found them? Then Langston comes back with, very true, then look into the boxes that were presented. The more boxes were being housed in a different room. No, there was none of that, because that is obstruction. If indeed the documents that were subsequently found after the raid were in a different room, that would be a different story, but that's not the case. All those documents were in one room. There's also a little bit of, shall we say, ledger domain on the part of the FBI, because the FBI took all those things out of the boxes and laid them out on the floor, including opening one up so that you could see, my God, it's classified. Then they blacked it all out. Yeah, that's Mike Renwee saying, love the way the FBI framed all those documents, all 11 of them. Make no mistake, it doesn't make any difference how many you have, okay? It's against the law. Except sometimes the president and the vice president, they get to do what they do. You've done it, I've done it, it's the way it works. I'll check that out, Langston. Thank you. So, more Gary Absher says, Billy, can you tell me why I walked into this room? Okay, that's a shot at President Biden. Okay. I get it. But when I'm discussing this, I'm going to be discussing the hypocrisy of it all. I'm not going to be discussing whether or not President Biden had classified documents. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This whole thing is stupid. The documents were dated between 2013 and 2016, according to the source familiar. By the way, once again, if they're that old, they're probably declassified anyway. more of the nothing burger. Same thing with President Trump's documents. That has never been announced. Let's see. The documents were discovered November 2nd, 6 days before the midterm elections. Strange, we didn't hear about that. If President Trump had been found with having those documents 6 days before an election, do you suppose we would have heard about it? The answer is absolutely yes. But that's the hypocrisy that comes in a discussion following this one. In case you just joined us, President Biden found to have documents while he was vice president. They were classified. They were in a closet at the University of Pennsylvania. He had no idea they were there. It does blow up the political story, but it's really a nothing burger. We'll have more about this coming up in a minute. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. I want to show you something. This is CNN proving its bias. Take a look at this. Classified documents found. 10 total documents, at least 325 total documents. Some top secret, 60 top secret. That's not correct. 60 were not top secret. Lawyers cooperating under investigation for obstruction. That's two completely different concepts. Lawyers found and alerted archives. Archives first reached out to Trump lawyers who cooperated under the orders of the president. Okay? So watch the spin. The vehemence of that spin will tell you just exactly how serious the people that now find themselves in this hypocrisy trap tell you how serious they're taking it. Just pay attention to what's going on. Okay? But it doesn't, it's correct, but it doesn't your narrative. Try again, Langston, in English. Okay, so I know what you're talking about there. Okay. All right. So anyway, that just popped up. Let's see. U.S. Attorney in Chicago, John Lausch, has already completed the initial part of his inquiry, provided his preliminary findings to Garland, according to a law enforcement source. That means Garland must now decide how to proceed. He was also personally involved in some of the key decision-making related to the Trump document investigation and the decision to send the FBI to search Mar-a-Lago. He has a whole bunch of egg on his face. The best thing to do is to fold up the tent on the classified document handling thing, just like they did with Hillary Clinton. Wipe the egg off your face, move forward with obstruction if you want to. And if you can prove it, do whatever you got to do. Right? But when the reality hits the line here, we have three issues. Issue number one, nobody has ever clarified just exactly what presidential privilege and executive privilege actually means and what the limitations are. That's on purpose. There's supposed to be arguments like this because nobody can come up with a hard and fast rule that doesn't have what the legal people call mitigating circumstances. So this is always a fight. It's always a tug of war. It was only made into a national security issue because President Trump was involved. See, this was a trap set by the media and picked up by the politicians, or vice versa. It doesn't make any difference. The politicians, the mainstream media, the security agencies, the DOJ, the FBI, they're all part of this big political machine that's running the country. And so once again, you have to understand that all of this comes together from a standpoint of this hypocrisy. This hypocrisy is awful. And I've been saying over and over and over that the hypocrisy of this is going to get us if we don't stop it. There is either equal protection under the law or there isn't. If you are going to accuse somebody of something, you had, by God, better be sure you're not guilty of the same thing. The linkage of Democrat politics and the mainstream media is disastrous. Not just disastrous for the country, not just disastrous for anybody who disagrees with Democrats, but also disastrous for the Democrats and the administration. This linkage is disastrous for everyone. It's also disastrous for the media. Look at what happened. Look at what's happening with CNN. It's honestly going to take 3 decades for CNN to climb out of the hole that they were put into by Jeff Zucker. And it's all because this political reporting, this political hypocrisy has driven listeners and viewers of CNN away in droves. A gigantic corporation owns CNN. They're not going to fold up the tent at CNN. They're not going to sell CNN because nobody would buy it. They're not going to do any of that stuff. What they're going to do is they're just going to eat the losses. They'll reduce the amount of loss that they have by firing people, which they've done. And they're going to try to remake the network into something closer resembling, and I dare say this, the Wells Report, where if there is commentary, it's fair, as opposed to partisan, snarky, nasty, and wrong. And I don't know how long it'll take them to be able to fix their brand. I don't know how long it's going to, and frankly, I really don't care. Let's see. Okay, that's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. Let me come back to this here. Let me make sure I haven't left anything out this hour. Oh, there's this. President Biden once defended the practice of taking home classified documents in some circumstances last summer. This from Fox, by the way. Biden made the comments while speaking to reporters on the South Lawn at the White House, saying he planned to take home some classified documents that very day. Now, the Justice Department is investigating a collection of classified documents found at a Biden-affiliated think tank dated to his time as vice president. Okay. By the way, President Biden, when he said that, was in the company of the Secret Service. So if the Secret Service is guarding President Trump's documents, then certainly the Secret Service is covering and guarding President Biden's documents. Once again, let's stay away from the hypocrisy, and that's exactly what we do here on the Wells Report. Back with more next hour. Thanks very much for joining us here on this broadcast. I appreciate your time, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. Okay. All right. Thanks very much for the debate on the chat room. Back with more in a moment. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. Welcome. Glad you're here. What do? We report the news fairly, honestly, and it's balanced. It really is. It absolutely is. This is a good show. I'm glad you're here because you get a realistic look at the news, which is missing. Absolutely missing. Let's see. We were talking about CNN. CNN is, as was quoted from the chat room, twisting itself into pretzels to explain why this is not anything close to what happened with Donald Trump. It's exactly the same thing that happened to Donald Trump. It's exactly the same thing. I mean, this is a mess created by the political machine. This whole mess comes right back to the political machine. And if you haven't heard me talking about that, it's like this, okay? The government, the executive branch, and the executive branch agencies, CIA, NSA, FBI, Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, Office of National Intelligence, et al. All these people, okay, work together. It started in the Obama administration following the pass that was handed out by the ill-advised passage of the Patriot Act. The mainstream media coalesces with the government because the mainstream media is essentially a stenography service for the prevailing Democrat administration. And so what you have here is you have the government, the administration, and the news media all working together to lie to you. And when they get caught in lies, they go, the dog ate my homework. Yeah, okay. Well, this is why you have to be more careful when you start throwing bombs around, because occasionally they land on you. This is where the administration needs to cut its losses. This is where the DOJ needs to cut its losses. This is where all these people need to cut their losses immediately and say, look, President says, oh, that was the dumbest thing ever. I can't believe I did that. I want to apologize for President Trump for giving him all that crap to him on 60 Minutes. And all I can tell you is we're working with the National Archives and the DOJ because they're investigating to make sure that I don't have any more of these things, that they're not going to be able to find more of these things, and we're cooperating fully. Next question. That's what the president needs to say. The mainstream media needs to, well, I don't mean to soft pedal the story. What they need to do is they need to say, much like President Trump, President Biden was found with, and they need to start reporting fairly. It can be done. I do it every day, Monday through Friday, 2 to 5 p.m. live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and on delay with Rumble and Patreon. Okay? Yeah, Mike Renwee says nobody's going to apologize to President Trump for anything. Yeah, I understand. I get it. The historians will. The historians will apologize, but these people, no, they're political sociopaths. They are political sociopaths and they're stuck. We're going to see just how far that sociopathic tendency goes. And you can see it right now because the spin doctors are everywhere. I'm going to show you one here in just a couple of seconds. So reporters are grilling House Democrats on why President Biden had classified documents that were not disclosed before the midterms. House Democrat Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar was the guy that they talked to most of all. And I'm going to see if we get a commercial here, but I'm going to show you just exactly what he said when he was asked about this very thing. And there's the commercial. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to turn this up. Let's see, I'm going to turn this up. No, hold it. I'm going to turn that up. Now I'm going to hit skip ad, and then I'm turning it up, and here we go.
Let's step back and talk about this for a minute, because and I appreciate the question. This is Republican hypocrisy at its finest. When the former president had 320 documents found at his personal residence, they said that, quote, that will not be a priority. What President Biden did was disclose this to the archives, let law enforcement know. That is exactly the way that you should handle this. So we're going to support the fact that the president is following this established protocol, that he did the right thing, and see what other and see where we go from here. But we're not interested. Republicans aren't interested in having meaningful oversight. They're just interested in opposing this president. Go ahead.
What do you say to critics who argue these documents were discovered November 2nd, midterms were November 8th, and they could have been withheld to avoid potential damage against Democrats before the midterms?
This was done in consultation. You saw Merrick Garland have a U.S. attorney weigh in at this point. This is being done the exact way, getting the archives involved. Someone who was on the January 6th committee, there is a process to handling documents. The president is handling it the way he should. That's what's important here. Go ahead.
Okay. So like I said, the pretzelism is ripe and rampant as people try to explain why President Trump is far worse than anybody else ever. Okay. This isn't going anywhere. All right? Except that the administration, the DOJ, all these guys need to cut their losses. They need to concentrate, if they have a case against President Trump on obstruction, by all means pursue that. But regarding whether or not these people have classified documents, they have classified documents. It's okay. All right? And once again, I have to clarify, my coverage of this. I have to clarify it with you. My coverage of this centers on the hypocrisy that we just saw from Pete Aguilar. That's just plain hypocrisy. It's ridiculous. He starts his statement by saying, "This is Republican hypocrisy." Oh, really? Oh, really? I'm sorry. January 6th committee ring a bell? No, I'm sorry. They put a whole bunch of precedents out on the table and they got caught red-handed with their own guy violating those same precedents. And that's why anything that you hear about this from an actual standpoint of whether or not it's important or not important, I frankly don't care. I don't think you do either. But the actual pretzelism is what I'm going to report. The mainstream media needs to be held account for that hypocrisy. We already have held the 50 or so intelligence officers that talked about how Hunter Biden's laptop was nothing more than Russian disinformation. Those guys look like idiots. And so does everybody else that tries to, and except for you. I'm talking about government officials. I should have made a fine point on that. Okay. Once again, the government officials that try to defend this are going to look like idiots. They need to stop. They're hurting themselves. Stop looking like morons. One last thing. While we're on this topic, okay, who is the moron responsible for not going through President Biden's papers to make sure he doesn't have any of that stuff while they're stomping all over President Trump for having all that stuff? One of the really bad things about the Biden administration isn't so much about Joe Biden. Joe Biden's an old guy. He acts like an old guy. He thinks like an old guy. He screws up like an old guy. He's an old guy. Where are the people working to make sure that his old guyism doesn't turn into a national issue? Just like this. Where are those people? If I was the chief of staff for President Biden, I would sit there and I would go, you need to justify why we employ you. Ready, go. And that's the way I'd handle it. That's the way I'd handle it. This is outrageous that this president is being embarrassed at this level. golly, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, my coverage of this, it's been right down the center line. I said the same things about President Trump, and I said about that I'm saying about President Biden. This is stupid. By the way, somebody asked me a question. Okay, Mike Renwee, what are your thoughts on the HRC emails? It's not so much the emails that I'm concerned about. I'm curious about what they said. I'm curious about what they said vis-a-vis whether or not they were on a classified set of servers talking back and forth, whether they were encrypted or not. But what bugs me about Hillary Rodham Clinton's server is the fact that she destroyed it after it was all subpoenaed. Same thing with her phones. Same thing with all of that. That was obstruction of justice. And so I say, if the DOJ wants to investigate President Trump for obstruction of justice, go right ahead. It's not going anywhere, because if I was defending President Trump on an obstruction of justice charge, I would subpoena Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I would sit there and ask her, did you or did you not wipe the server? Did you or did you not destroy telephones containing National Archives information? She'd have to declare the fifth. Case closed. So once again, this is going nowhere. Believe me, if it could have gone anywhere, what would have happened is we would have already heard about it by now. So anyway, House Democrats asked multiple times, twisting themselves into pretzels, looking stupid. Reaction number 2. Okay, Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann. I love Keith Olbermann. I thought he was the best sportscaster in the entire world, and I called him in Bristol, Connecticut after one of his shows and said so to him directly. I got to him. I got to his phone. I said, Keith, you're the best I ever saw. And then he decided to become a news person. And then he lost it. Okay, so Keith Olbermann blows up the mainstream media for covering the Biden documents. He goes, Hillary Clinton's emails again? Because that's why he quit. He couldn't stand having to report about Hillary Clinton's emails. Then he goes on to say, a Swiss Army knife is the same as Jack the Ripper's murder weapon? Keith, you just compared President Trump to a serial killer. Okay? That's just a little over the top. Former MSNBC host and leftist anti-Trump critic Keith Olbermann rushed to defend President Joe Biden on Twitter. We're really going to do this again. We're really going to do the Hillary Clinton emails again. We're really going to do whataboutism and both sidesism again. By the way, whataboutism and both sidesism, that goes by another name. In more sane times, it would be known as hypocrisy. Yeah. Olbermann targeted CNN, CBS News, NBC News, The Washington Post, New York Times for reporting on a newly revealed investigation into Biden's alleged mishandling classified documents. Look, the situation is like this. Keith, baby, Boopy, you're asking for censorship of the news. You're violating the First Amendment. Stop. Stop it. Stop it, Keith. By the way, next time you're in Dallas, let's do this. Let's go get a Coke or something. Can we do that? This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells, looking at the chat room, and says, amazing watching the Oversight Committee this morning. Democrats sure are worried they might get investigated. Actually, they're probably more than worried that they might get. They're probably extremely worried that they are going to get investigated. They will get investigated, and they should. That's true. Gary points out another extreme overuse by comparing a regular person to Jack the Ripper. Well, President Trump isn't a regular person, but still. Jack the Ripper, Keith. Keith Olbermann. Come on, man. Come to Dallas. Let's have lunch. You know, one of the good ones. One of the 3 martini ones. That's from a long time ago. I have sources, right? I have sources. I'm not going to tell you who this person is, but believe me, this is a source. Classifications are confidential, secret, and top secret. The others are caveats attached to one of the classifications. I didn't know that. All the cover sheets that had classifications on them do not necessarily mean the actual classified documents are attached, and the actual cover sheets are unclassified with no controls. Okay. All right, so there you go. Now we know. All right. Thanks very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Mysterious. He knows who I am. I know who he is, but I'm never going to tell you. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, so just so you know. Getting back to this, we're going to be talking a little bit more about what we've got here. This from the London Daily Mail. And it's about the chorus of, okay, now we're going to raid President Biden's. We're going to raid President Biden's houses, right? No, we're not. And I'll tell you why we're not going to do that in the next half hour after the break. Look, the overarching problem here is something we have to fix. We have to stop playing politics with our national intelligence, our national law enforcement, and our mainstream media. We have to stop. We, the people of the United States, made it abundantly clear to the sports media world, tying in Keith Olbermann, we made it abundantly clear that we were not going to tolerate politics being played on the field of sports, on any sports field. We had about a season and a half of people trying to make political statements, and it got stopped in a big hurry because it was costing the sports industry viewers. The news industry is at its intellectual and popularity nadir. In other words, it's at a low point. I don't think it's going to get any lower. I don't think it can get any lower, but it's bad. And that's what we have to fix. We have to stop playing politics with things that are not political. A country that prides itself on equal representation under the law can't have the FBI playing politics. People that have had any conversation, any kind of contact at all with the nation's intelligence agencies know about what's called cooking the intelligence. It is uniformly disastrous. You make the wrong decisions, people get killed. Cooking the intelligence is just not done. We can't play politics with our military. We can't have a political test for soldiers defending this nation and its Constitution and its people. We have to stop this. This is the overarching problem. All of these things are violations of various parts of the Constitution of the United States. And if there is an overarching problem above the overarching problem, it's that our government absolutely refuses to hold itself to the standards of the Constitution and Bill of Rights of the United States. Back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Ann says, there's not going to be a raid of the Biden's residence or the White House? Damn. I was hoping to see the Bidens run out in the street in their drawers with the SWAT team behind them. That's a mental picture I'll never be able to get out of my head. And thanks. Horrifying. Let's see. I'm tired as to why taxpayers were paying for the office with security documents 7 years after the guy was out of office. Well, you got to keep something in mind. The taxpayers probably were not paying for the office, although there may be some sort of allowance in the federal budget for vice presidential libraries. I don't think so. I think that was a private enterprise. But seeing as how the University of Pennsylvania got somewhere around, $44 million from the Chinese Communist Party, obviously the Chinese Communist Party was paying for that office. So there you go. All right. Isn't it strange? And this came into my mind earlier today. So Representative Eric Swalwell, is involved with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. He's a Democrat. Senator Feinstein finds that she's got a Chinese operative working as her chauffeur for years. Okay? And she's a Democrat. And so now what we have Hunter Biden dealing with the Chinese. He's a Democrat. The President of the United States working at the University of Pennsylvania and the Chinese through their donations. Is there something going on here we need to be aware of? Just how deep is the penetration of the Chinese Communist Party into the United States government? Now, the Red Scare of the 50s with the McCarthy Committee on Anti-American Activities, that was a blight on the American people. Although many of the accusations made proved to be true in subsequent years, it was still an abomination. Just like the January 6th committee. That's an abomination. It's absolutely an abomination. All the people on that committee were lawyers, and they turned their back on due process. Well, I mean, stop it. It doesn't work that way. Man, what you ought to do is you ought to have a big old bar fight between the Democrat side and the Republican side, just about equal on that committee. You ought to have a giant food fight. Then you ought to hash it all out. And all the information gathered by the January 6th committee needs to be released to the American people. If Kevin McCarthy doesn't do that, he's going to hear from me. He's absolutely going to hear from me. Okay? Yeah, it's just awful. Yeah. Poor Yvonne. Wow, I just came back to the show just in time to hear the mental picture of Joe Biden standing on Pennsylvania Avenue in his underwear. Yeah, I know. Hideous. Hideous. I wonder what Dr. Biden would look like in her underwear. I'm sorry, where were we? Oh, yeah. Okay, getting back to this. Let's just keep moving. John Beal says, good afternoon, fellow traders. Yeah, I know. All right, so here we go. This from the London Daily Mail. Former President Donald Trump led the chorus of condemnation after it emerged classified documents had been found in the offices of Joe Biden's Washington, D.C. think tank. The 10 files were found early in November by Biden's lawyers, handed over. The Justice Department has opened an investigation. The New York Times said that investigation could lead to a special counsel being appointed. Dear God, no. As happened in the case of Donald Trump and the hundreds of documents he kept at Mar-a-Lago. Biden was in Mexico City for a meeting with President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. I can't do that. I just can't do that. And refused to answer shouted questions as to how the documents ended up inside the offices. Once again, if I was advising the president, I'd say, all you guys, come here. Come over here. Come over here. Those documents, finding those documents is an embarrassment. It was a stupid error. I can't believe I'm that dumb. But that's the way it is. That's the way we have it. We identified the documents. We turned them over to the archives. We're looking for others. And what we'll do is we'll turn those into. But the crime is not turning the documents back in. The crime is having them in the first place. If you rob a bank, and once again, I'm not creating an equivalence between those two crimes. If you rob a bank and then you take all the money to the FBI, you've still robbed a bank. All right, it's real simple. So President Trump was indeed among the many Republicans demanding answers, pointing out that his own home was raided by the FBI for having classified documents stored there. Quote, when is the FBI going to raid the many homes of Joe Biden, perhaps even the White House? These documents were definitely not declassified, unquote. He's got a point. Trump's son, Donald Jr., also asked when Biden's home was going to be raided. Quote, when will the FBI hostage rescue team storm one of Biden's many vacation homes, bought and paid for somehow by a lifetime of being a humble public servant, unquote. Ronnie Jackson, the former White House doctor turned Texas congressman, said the news was incredible. Quote, it's just been discovered that President Biden had highly classified documents that were improperly stored in one of his private offices. Incredible. Where's the FBI? Where's the dramatic raid? We have two systems of justice in this country, one for them and one for us. That's that hypocrisy that I'm pointing out. We can't have it. It's got to stop. We got to stop it. At a presser in Mexico City, as the president was being ushered out of the meeting room, one reporter, or as they were being ushered out of the meeting room, one reporter yelled out, Mr. President, any response to the discovery of classified documents, unquote. Biden, flanked by the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and the Attorney General Merrick Garland did not respond to the question, which was shouted as a Mexican government official began thanking the visiting U.S. delegation. Garland has asked U.S. Attorney in Chicago, a Trump appointee, the only one left, to review the 10 files recovered by Biden's personal attorneys at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. The classified materials included some top secret files with sensitive compartmented information. That's known as SCI, which is used for highly sensitive information obtained by intelligence sources. And as far as where they were being stored, that's out in the wide open. That's out in the wide open. That's why we have laws that keep people from doing that. There you go. The White House special counsel said in a statement the White House is cooperating with the National Archives and the Department of Justice regarding the discovery of what appear to be Obama-Biden administrative records, including a small number of documents with classified markings. The documents were located in November, 6 days before the midterms. That's also problematic. Okay? This is another opportunity to point out hypocrisy. Had those documents been discovered 6 days before an election involving Donald Trump, they would have been on the front page of the New York Times the next day. And you know it. That's this hypocrisy I'm talking about. It's unclear whether the classified documents or what they contain, but that has been updated. They had intel information on Iran and Great Britain and other places. The discovery follows a raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort last year, comes as Republicans begin their investigations into the Biden family. James Comer, the Republican congressman currently serving as chairman of the Oversight Committee, said late last night that he would send a letter to the White House and National Archives looking for answers. The House Judiciary GOP tweeted the news with warning sirens. Conservative radio host Clay Travis said, quote, they just announced the Joe Biden family or the Joe Biden illegally kept classified documents from his vice presidency in his possession. I'm old enough to remember when the media told me this was impossible. So much for the Trump indictment between Hillary and Biden. This story is over. He's correct. Absolutely. And it should have never been a story to begin with, by the way. It was an overblown, it was overblown hackery. It was political hackery. It's awful. Let's see. Congressman Troy Nehls breaking classified documents from Joe Biden's vice presidential days found at his private office. When will the FBI raid his home? Representative Andy Biggs, one of the firebrands of the House Freedom Caucus. Biden stole classified documents and stored them in his think tank while he was VP. The VP does not have any authority to declassify classified documents. Maybe. There is an Obama-era executive order clarifying that kind of thing. This think tank received, by the way, $54 million in funding from the CCP. Oops. It wasn't the think tank that received the $54 million. It was the University of Pennsylvania. Just keeping it accurate. Jenna Ellis, Biden's DOJ is reviewing Biden's classified documents. Maybe should check notes, consider a special master. And I know I said, oh God, please no. Please no. But it wouldn't surprise me if that happens, but I don't know. Steve Hilton, Joe Biden's theft of classified documents is clearly worse than anything Trump has been accused of. Wrong. If Merrick Garland doesn't pursue Biden with at least as much ferocity as he's pursuing Trump, we'll know that equal justice under the law is dead, killed by hyper-partisan Democrats. Good statement. Team Biden found the documents, immediately contacted the archives and returned them. Trump and his lawyers repeatedly deceived authorities and did everything possible to avoid returning them. This is not the same thing, says Dan Pfeiffer. That's a good point, but you have a short memory, Nan. Fortunately, I keep my show notes. Big difference between this and Trump's Mar-a-Lago situation. They were found in an office setting, not in Biden's home. Biden's team immediately volunteered news of the discovery to the archives and turned them over immediately. It's apples to oranges. No, Joyce, it's not. It absolutely isn't. Let's see. They were found in an office setting. The documents that President Trump had were found in a storage facility in a place where he had an office. So it was also an office setting. The FBI knew all about them, had access to them at least beginning in May, chose not to pursue it. All right. And oh, by the way, all the documents President Trump had were guarded by the Secret Service. 24/7, 365. Not the case with President Biden's documents. They were just sitting in a closet somewhere. Okay. Let's see what else. Let's keep going. Let's see. Podcaster Steve Hilton. He's a podcaster. He did not say why, but vice presidents are not able to declassify documents as presidents are. That's true. Joe Biden's theft of classified documents. Let's do this. You know, I know that President Trump was accused of stealing these documents. I know that there's a difference between the presidency and the vice presidency regarding something like this. But once again, let's try to soft pedal the theft aspect of this. If Merrick Garland does not pursue Biden with at least as much ferocity, I already talked about that, then we'll know that equal justice under the law is dead. Let's see. Yet others insist the Trump storage of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago was more serious. Dan Pfeiffer, former senior advisor to Barack Obama. You know, I already read that to you. Yeah. Joyce Vance, a former federal prosecutor, agreed. Remember, these people are twisting themselves up into pretzels trying to spin this. All right? Look. Just stop. Shh. Be very, very quiet. Just hush. The president needs to go out and say, gosh, I made a big mistake. Apologies to President Trump for the things that I said on 60 Minutes. We're turning everything over. I'm going through everything I've got, making sure that I don't have any more of this stuff, and we'll roll on. That would fix it. That would absolutely fix it. It would be gone. It's unbelievable. Of course, the president really doesn't have to do that because, as he knows, because of this linkage between Democrat politics and the mainstream media, all he has to do is wait a few days. It'll be gone anyway. But it won't be fixed. It will not be fixed. Let's see, what else do we have here? The report said the documents were found while Biden attorneys were packing up the office to leave. The files were in a folder in a locked closet in a box with other classified documents or unclassified documents. CBS report states that Biden is unaware of the contents. Exactly. And there will now be a review on how the documents got to that office a mile from the White House. Yeah. The Presidential Records Act requires all presidents and vice presidential documents to be handed over to the National Archives when the term of office ends so they can be kept secure. Nobody ever does it. After the discovery, the White House counsel's office notified the National Archives, took possession of the documents November 3rd. That would have been 5 days before the midterm elections. John Lausch, we've already talked about. Richard Sauber, special counsel of the president, we've also heard about today. And so there you go. I will summarize all of this for you as we keep going. And we'll do that right after this quick break. You are listening to The Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. I make commentary and we debate. And Ann Hoy Guzman came up with a really good question. Who pays $1,000 an hour for lawyers to pack up an office? I smell a skunk in the woodpile. Yeah. That's a very, very good question. Why do you suppose that was? Probably won't know, but there you go. Quickly, before I get to my summation here, Alan Weisselberger, former President Donald Trump's longtime chief financial officer, was sentenced by a New York judge to 5 months in jail for his role in a decade-long tax fraud scheme after testifying as the state witness against the Trump organization. Following the court hearing, Weisselberg, 75, is expected to report to Rikers Island, the notorious New York City jail, to begin serving his sentence immediately. They're going to send this guy to Rikers Island? Really? He pled guilty last August to 15 felonies in a deal with prosecutors. As a part of the deal, he was required to testify truthfully at the trial of the Trump Organization, pay $2 million in back taxes, interest and penalties, and waive any right to an appeal. Now, remember, Weisselberg was running this game while he was the Trump Organization's CFO. All right, this is something that's on him. And they were leaning on him to try to get him to talk about Donald Trump. And he had nothing to say, he had nothing to testify about. And therefore, he didn't testify about it. 5 months in Rikers Island is going to be way too long. Should he go to Danbury, Connecticut and take care of a golf course for 5 months? Sure. Absolutely. But he's a felon now. And that's a pretty serious punishment, et cetera, et cetera. Weisselberg admitted he should have paid taxes on off-the-books compensation, roughly $200,000 in 1 year, which included a luxury Manhattan apartment overlooking the Hudson River, 2 Mercedes-Benz car leases, parking, utilities, furniture, private school tuition for his kids, for his grandchildren. All right, now let's talk about the summation to this. First of all, President Biden has been found to be in possession of classified documents while he was vice president. Okay? From a legal standpoint, it's going nowhere. As a matter of fact, the only place it's going is the DOJ has to recalibrate regarding to their chase of Donald Trump for the same thing. So that's going nowhere. As a matter of fact, the obstruction case, very easily disproved. That's going nowhere against President Trump. That's going nowhere. All of this is essentially blowing up everything that has been talked about regarding President Trump and his classified documents. It just blows it up. It's over. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, partisans are exploiting this for political purposes. And I suppose that's what they have to do. One side sitting there smuggling, saying, look at this, how ironic. The other side saying, no, it's not the same at all. I mean, President Biden is cooperating with the authorities. President Trump did not. We don't know that. Well, how can you say that? How can you say that President Trump didn't try to obstruct justice? Because they're still investigating whether he obstructed justice. If they believe he obstructed justice and they can make a case, put it into court. Go right ahead. I'd love to see that trial. It'll be over quickly and in President Trump's favor. It's the way it is. So what else do we have? Oh, the main issue for me is hypocrisy. It starts with equal representation under the law. The FBI cannot raid President Trump's home, even though he's a former vice president. We have to point out, nobody's going to raid President Biden's homes because he's the sitting president of the United States. President Trump is a former president. No, it's never happened before. Probably shouldn't have happened that time. But once again, they were trying to impugn the president at the time, or impugn the former president. They were trying to play politics. And they got to stop it. They absolutely have to stop it. Because this is biting them squarely on their ample, ever-expanding, hair-covered butts. Talk about a mental picture you'll never get out of your head. So there you go. Now, hypocrisy in the news media. The spin doctors are going into overtime, trying to parse out the differences. There are no differences. There shouldn't be any differences. None. Because if you say, well, Donald Trump had more documents. Yeah, 11 of them were top secret SCI. Okay. Don't know how many of these that are in the Biden collection are top secret SCI, but I suspect probably all of them. So, the news media is making itself look stupid by trying to justify President Biden's conduct and then vilifying President Trump's conduct. The only thing that President Trump has on this, or has any kind of part of, is the fact that all these Democrats, all these people made brave statements about what a criminal Donald Trump was and set all these precedents that now will very likely be shoved up their noses by Republican political activists. And I suppose that's how you fix it. But that hypocrisy is going to get us. This is why I keep talking about it. We have to stop this hypocrisy. We have to become a nation of laws, not politics. We have to do it immediately. And we also have to be able to keep our lids on when stuff happens. This is the Wells Report, back with hour number 3 in a moment. God bless you all. Thanks very much for being here. I can't tell you how important it is that you join me on this. I hope this is giving you something that's worthwhile. I'm sorry, I just saw something really cool on the chat room. I'll get to it in a second. Oh, sweet. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That's not the news. Commentary, by the way, never has been the news, although occasionally commentary does make news. I doubt very sincerely this will ever happen on the Wells Report. But you never know. And that commentary is subject to debate, and so we do. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. And Mike Renwee, longtime friend of this broadcast, said it's still the only show. The Wells Report is still the only show online that I will run all the way through. And then I go back to Twitch to catch the shows I missed. God bless you, man. What a nice thing to say. Going to talk about Republicans now. This was just released by Fox News 24 minutes ago. The House of Representatives passed a resolution that establishes this, by the way, is from Fox. The House of Representatives passed a resolution that establishes a new judiciary subcommittee tasked with reviewing how the executive branch has investigated and collected information on American citizens. The Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government passed the House by a 221 to 211 vote. It will be led by Representative Jim Jordan, who will also chair the full Judiciary Committee. The subcommittee will consist of 13 members. Hopefully, close to half of them will be Democrats. The panel is expected to investigate not only how the executive branch has gathered information on citizens, but how it has worked with other bodies, including private sector companies, to, quote, facilitate action against American citizens, unquote. The resolution states the committee will investigate how the executive branch agencies collected, compiled, analyzed, used, and disseminated information about citizens of the United States, including any unconstitutional, illegal, or unethical activities committed against citizens of the United States, unquote. That is serious. Because all of these things happened. We know they happened. And despite the mainstream media's very best efforts to hide all of that information, we still know it. The subcommittee's work would include a full and complete investigation and study and a final report to be submitted by January 2nd, 2025. That's too long. It's too long. These players need to be identified and answer questions immediately. The subcommittee will have subpoena power, and since Democrats went out of their way to throw people into jail for ignoring subpoenas, believe me, the people subpoenaed by this subcommittee will have to appear. The body has been compared to the Church Committee of the 1970s, in which Senator Frank Church, the Democrat from Ohio, investigated executive branch intelligence abuse. House Judiciary Committee House Judiciary Committee ranking Democrat Representative Gerald Nadler of New York told the Times he did not see this new subcommittee as comparable to the Church Committee. Nadler said the new subcommittee is, quote, listen to this, fueled by conspiracy theories and slated to be run by the most extreme members of the MAGA caucus, unquote. Stopping here for just a quick second, the term conspiracy theory is overused. It's overused, especially by Democrats. Conspiracy theories that are found to be true are not conspiracy theories. And that's what's happened over and over and over. He needs to modify his rhetoric. That was a mistake. He said that the Church Committee was a serious bipartisan attempt to reform the conduct of the intelligence community based on hard and verifiable evidence. There is hard and verifiable evidence, Mr. Representative. You're blowing it. House Republican Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik of New York told Fox News, House Republicans are committed to ending the political weaponization of the FBI and DOJ's abuse of power and restoring a government accountable to the people. Let's hope. Thank you, Brooke Singman. She wrote that. There you go. While we're at it, the Republicans also did this. Texas Republican Representative Pat Fallon has filed impeachment articles against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, delivering on a promise he made last week before the 118th Congress was officially sworn in. The articles of impeachment against Mayorkas are for high crimes and misdemeanors, known as House Resolution 8. They were introduced by Fallon in the House and have been referred to the House Judiciary Committee. Last week, Fallon vowed to file impeachment articles against Mayorkas after the Congress was sworn in. The effort from Republicans in the House is one of many the new GOP majority will take as it works to fight the Biden administration on issues related to immigration and the southern border crisis. Quote, since day one, Secretary Mayorkas' policies have undermined law enforcement activities on our southern border. He said that in a statement to Fox News last week. One little aside, Secretary Mayorkas had a lot of help. He may end up being the fall guy for all of this, but he had a lot of help. All right, from the mainstream media, the Biden administration, the DOJ, and just about everybody else. Okay, so there you go. From perjuring himself before Congress, he did, about maintaining operational control of the border, to the infamous Whipgate slander against our Border Patrol agents, Secretary Mayorkas has proven time and time again he's unfit to lead the Department of Homeland Security, unquote. His willful actions have eroded our immigration system, undermined Border Patrol morale, jeopardized American national security. He's violated the law. It's time for him to go, said Representative Fallon. By the way, on that morale issue, that's kind of a big deal. 11 Border Patrol agents have killed themselves during this period of time. One of them was one of my friends and fellow Texas State Guard member. While there is currently no text available for the impeachment articles filed against Mayorkas, Fox News reported last week that Fallon's first article alleges that Mayorkas failed to faithfully execute the Secure Fence Act of 2006. The article says the law required the Secretary of Homeland Security to, quote, maintain operational control over the entire international land and maritime borders of the United States. The second article alleges that Mayorkas, in violation of his constitutional oath, willfully provided perjurious, false, and misleading testimony to Congress. To back up the charge, the article quotes Mayorkas' testimony during April 26th and November 15th congressional hearings in which he said the border was secure. The final of the three articles alleges that Mayorkas publicly and falsely slandered Border Patrol agents who were accused but later cleared of whipping Haitian migrants in Del Rio, Texas in 2021. The 511-page report by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Office of Personal Responsibility found no evidence Border Patrol agents involved in the incident struck, intentionally or otherwise, any migrant with their reins. Secretary Mayorkas slandered his own Border Patrol agents and Texas DPS troopers involved in the incident, contributing to a further decrease in already low morale among the agents, unquote. During a visit to El Paso in late November, Representative Kevin McCarthy of California, who was elected by his GOP colleagues to serve as House Speaker on Friday, called for Mayorkas to resign over his handling of the migrant crisis at the southern border and warned of an impeachment inquiry when Republicans officially took control of the House. Quote, if Secretary Mayorkas does not resign, House Republicans will investigate every order, every action, and every failure and will determine whether we can begin an impeachment inquiry, McCarthy said at the time. Mayorkas, on Sunday of this week, or Sunday of last week, said he will not resign over his handling of the border crisis and insisted he will be ready for future investigations by House Republicans while continuing to fulfill his daily responsibilities. Brave words. But when the pressure begins to increase, I wonder just exactly what Secretary Mayorkas will say about the help that I just inferred that he had among the administration and the media. I wonder what he's going to say. I bet you it's going to be things, they will be things that the administration and the media don't want him to say. Because he's in trouble here. He is in trouble here. During an appearance on ABC's This Week, Mayorkas previewed President Biden's visit to El Paso, was pressed by anchor George Stephanopoulos to respond to McCarthy's call for him to resign and whether he has any intentions of doing so. I do not. I've got a lot of work to do, and we're going to do it. We'll see. We'll see. In response to previous calls to impeach Mayorkas, a DHS spokesman said in November they amount to little more than finger-pointing from Congress. Quote, Secretary Mayorkas is proud to advance the noble mission of the department, support its extraordinary workforce, and serve the American people, said the spokesman. Members of the Congress can do better than pointing the finger at somebody else. They should come to the table and work on solutions for our broken system and outdated laws, which have not been overhauled in over 40 years. Yes, they have. They have been overhauled. They've been overhauled by political fiat, by both parties. They've been updated. They just didn't do it right. Should they do it right? Yes. Should they do it right while Republicans are more or less out of power? No. No. And the reason I do this is because when it comes right down to it, I trust the Republican Party to have a fair, since they are basically the handmaidens of the Democrat Party, I suspect the Republicans will have a much more fair process in legislating immigration reform than Democrats. If you don't believe me, think back to any Democrat statement regarding immigration into this nation. Over 2.5 million migrants now call America home because of Biden administration policy. It's not the Biden administration's job to import the world's poor into the United States. And there's a big difference between requesting political asylum and just trying to find a better place to live for your family. I feel for the people trying to do better. If I was outside the fence looking at the shining city on the hill, I'd try to figure out a way to get in there. But I'd follow the law. And one of the first things the American government can do to solve this mess is to say, if you're here illegally, you had better report, or if you don't, then when we catch you, and we will, then you're going to be disqualified for entering the United States for a decade. That's one thing they can do. I have a perfect immigration system. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Takes care of everybody, including the DACA kids. It takes care of everyone. And I hope that it becomes law someday. There's more as we talk about what the Republicans are up to. We'll get to that as we continue. You can call us at 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Lots of people are talking on the chat room. You can too. Go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And let me hear what you have to say, or call me on the telephone again, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Big day. Big day. Poker Monkey says the funniest part of today's show is watching Isaac twist and turn trying to defend the leftist insanity of the Democrat Party, leftist media, etc. Well, yeah. That's why I always look forward to seeing him on the chat room. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172, or you can go to the chat room, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And so let's see. Let me talk about Mike Renwee points out that Pat Fallon is his representative. Yeah. Poker Monkey points this out. It doesn't matter what Fallon does. The Senate will not vote to remove him from office. Well, I'm not so sure about that. And the reason that I'm not so sure about it is that it depends on the political calculus that this is going to represent to the Democrat Party. If indeed they move forward with impeachment, I don't expect Secretary Mayorkas to stick around very long. He will very likely resign. The only issue will be whether or not he resigns because he was encouraged to do so by the Democrat Party. And if they're not going to go through an impeachment of the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, they can't. Because once again, that politicizes the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. That is the last thing they need to do in a context of Republican investigation over abuse of power by that very same agency. So what they're going to probably try to do is make a clean break, and that's what I would suspect would happen. All right. By the way, Polk says that they can impeach people all day. It won't matter. Yes, it will. It will at least build a body of evidence. Poker also continues by saying the only way to fix it is to take over the Senate, take the White House, and increase our majority in the House. Well, yeah. But you do realize what has happened every time that's happened. The Republican Party has found a way to squander all that power. They found a way to do it. Let's see. Mike says, really like it when my rep does good things, but it'll never get past the Senate. Well, the Senate will have to consider it. If he's impeached, if Mayorkas is impeached, they'll have to consider it. So it will get to the Senate. Will they vote to remove him from office? Once again, the political calculus is in play there. And don't be surprised if they do. Then Mike says, McConnell's head on a spear would be nice. I mean, you're talking about a theatrical production, right? Let's see, where are we here? Get rid of Cornyn, get rid of McConnell, get rid of other rhinos like Mitt Romney. Yeah. Mike suggests that Senator Cornyn of Texas, by the way, in case you don't live here, needs to be pre-retired. I believe he's retiring. I believe he's stepping away from politics. And many people will celebrate that day. And says, enforce the laws. We'll decide if they need to be overhauled. That is a great thing to say. Because immigration laws do exist that cover the current onslaught at the southern border. They are not being enforced. The executive branch of the United States government does not have the choice of whether to enforce laws or not. They don't have the choice. The laws are made by the legislature. The executive branch executes those laws. It's very plain. When I talk about how political parties turn their back on the Constitution, that is one of the chief ways they do it. You don't get to pick and choose what laws you're going to enforce. You enforce the law. You don't enforce part of the law. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on from the heads on spears portion of the broadcast. That's what I'm going to do. And let's see, what else am I going to do? I'm going to take you to school. That's going to be coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Both the schools of the Academy, which is where the colleges, University American Academy, and also schools where your kids go, public schools. We're going there next as we continue on this 10th day of January, year of our Lord, 2023. 2023. All right. Back with more coming up in just a couple of seconds. Get in touch, 817-379-2172. This is The Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. You can find us on the chat room. Okay, about the heads on spears thing. Everybody's head on a spear in that show, the political one, eventually. In case you don't know, the French actually did that. They didn't put heads on spears, but they sure took a lot of heads in the French Revolution. I stood in the square where it happened. It was, yeah. So I forgot about this. We're going to get to the schools and the academy here in just a couple of seconds, but I got to tell you about this. According to some kind of a report, a federal agency is considering a ban on gas stoves. This on the heels about concern over harmful indoor air pollutants emitted by appliances. In an interview with Bloomberg, a non-credible news source in my experience with them, a U.S. Consumer Product Safety Health Commissioner, a U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commissioner said gas stove usage is a hidden hazard, which can cause health issues, including respiratory problems in children. The quote from Richard Trumka Jr. is, quote, "Any option is on the table. Products that can't be made safe can be banned." Yeah. This, by the way, is from Bloomberg, the first major outlet to break the news, reports USA Today. The report said agency plans to take action or address the indoor pollution caused by stoves. To be clear, the Consumer Product Safety Commission is not coming for anyone's gas stoves, said Trumka. Regulations apply to new products. For Americans who choose to switch from gas to electric, there is support available. What? Another government subsidy? You're $32 trillion in debt, Secretary Trumka or Commissioner Trumka. What the hell are you talking about? Support available. What support? The CPSC released the following statement to USA Today. The CPSC has not proposed any regulatory action on gas stoves at this time. Any regulatory action by the Commission would involve a lengthy process. Agency staff plans to gather data and perspectives from the public on potential hazards associated with gas stoves and propose solutions to the hazards that will happen later this year. Commission staff also continues to work with voluntary standard organizations to examine gas stove emissions and address potential hazards. There are no natural gas emissions. The stuff burns almost completely. It does release a little bit of carbon dioxide, but the actual burning process of natural gas makes it one of the most, if not the most clean source of energy, one of the most clean sources of energy in America, probably second only to nuclear power. Do we have any nuclear reactors going online? Well, there's one under construction. The rest of them are essentially being put into mothballs. Are they going to be reactivated? Well, if these clowns are serious about an all-electric society, they dang well better be. There's one right up the road here. It's Diablo Canyon. No, that's not it. Hold on. What is that? I got stuck with one in Sacramento and one in Southern California. Hang on. It's coming to me. We have a nuclear reactor right up the road, but it's they're putting it in mothballs. So get a load of this. Gas stoves used in more than 40 million U.S. homes for decades emit air pollution such as nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, fine particulate matter at levels the Environmental Protection Agency and World Health Organization said are unsafe, that are linked to respiratory disease, heart issues, cancer, and other medical problems. This according to reports by groups such as the Institute for Policy Integrity and the American Chemical Society. The Institute for Policy Integrity. It should be renamed the Institute for Policy Stupidity. The CPSC has been considering action on gas stoves since the fall. In October, Trumka recommended the agency seek public comment on the hazard associated with gas stoves after pollutants were linked to asthma and worsening respiratory conditions. Okay, let's see. What are they looking for? Comment? Here's my comment. You guys get off your dead butts and do something real. You make sure that people aren't losing fingers, and we'll take care of the respiratory issues in our houses. Leave my gas stove alone. Because if you think the natural gas, for crying out loud, puts out horrifying indoor pollution, what about propane stoves? What about propane? Now, propane does leave a few things floating around your house. I was raised in a propane house. It's been fine for me. I don't have any problems. Mostly. This is so stupid. You know, I'm just going to say this. This has been rolling around in my head for a while. Comanche Peak. Thank you, Mike. I knew it started with a C, but I couldn't remember it. For some reason. Don't ask me why. Okay, maybe it's because I cook with natural gas. And I have a natural gas furnace. And a natural gas dryer. You see, stupid me, when it comes to light, electricity. When it comes to heat, aside from our microwave, thanks, I'll use natural gas. That way I have some way of protecting myself against people screwing us over with electricity prices for political reasons, which, by the way, happens all the time. Anyway, this is something that that's been kicking around in my head. Okay, you've noticed in my life, I have created a difference between Democrats and leftist crazy people. There are more leftist crazy people in the Democrat Party than there are in the Republican Party, but there are plenty of leftists in the Republican Party. Make no mistake. Democrats, real Democrats, okay, Joe Manchin, for example, real Democrats actually believe in America and believe in the Constitution of the United States and realize that you cannot throw people into a new economy that doesn't exist. The electric economy does not exist. It partially exists, but we can't keep the lights on when there's a thunderstorm. We have all these magnificent all-electric everythings. Everything stops when the electricity stops. And now that we have smart meters on our houses, now we're in a situation where they can turn you off. Yeah, you're using too much electricity. I'm charging my electric car. Too bad. Remember? That happened in California. Stop charging your electric car. No, this is control about energy. This is control of energy. One of the main pillars of control of a society. The other is medical care. The other is food. The other is money. And all these brave people talking about, we've got to have digital currency. Yeah. So you can turn off my credit card. Right. No. But these harebrained ideas are part and parcel of Democrat administrations and Democrat politicians. Some harebrained ideas, like one that happened today in the House of Representatives, they actually voted to abolish the IRS. You don't need to abolish the IRS. You need to abolish the IRS tax code. And you need to do a flat tax that's easily understood by everyone and stops the need for even considering 87,000 IRS agents with guns. It's simple. All you got to do is just have a bunch of people in the IRS, accountants, all that kind of stuff, poring over the fact that everybody knows exactly how much they're going to pay in taxes. Instead of, I believe it's somewhere in the vicinity of 28% of your taxes being withheld for withholding, right? It would be 15%. Your tax bill at the end of the year might be $500 $5-6. You might get back a smaller return, but you'd have more money during the year. And so when you're talking about that, no, you don't abolish the IRS. You abolish the tax code in favor of a flat tax. That is a Republican idea that's going absolutely nowhere. It's just a political play. It's political kabuki theater. They have real problems to solve in the United States. We just got a subcommittee today that's going to start looking at abuse of power. The IRS is going to be involved in that because they played politics. They're going to get their assessments redone. That's what I was going to say the whole time, I swear. But that kind of stuff is okay, that's an example of a crazy idea. But when you elect Democrats, all the garbage that come with the crazy people in the Democrat Party come with it. You have people living on the streets in America's greatest cities, defecating there, using drugs there. That's because of Democrat policy. You have the schools inviting drag queens to come and perform for the kids. For what? You have pornography in school libraries. You have all of this stuff. It goes with the party. If you don't want all of this garbage being foisted on you, like, I don't know, Richard Trumka saying, gas stoves are evil, stop voting for Democrats. Eventually, they'll get the word. And eventually, somebody in the Democrat caucus will stand up, and when somebody comes up with a great idea, we got to abolish natural gas. We got to abolish that. Somebody will look over to him and say, hey, Billy, sit down and shut up. Come up with a better idea. We're trying to figure out how to fix immigration. We got to figure out how to keep these damn Republicans from making it impossible for us to import new voters so we don't have to worry about whether the Republicans ever win another election. Now hush. So when you vote Democrat, realize that a whole bunch of crazy garbage goes with the Democrat Party. Okay? Just keep that in mind. It's also true for the Republicans, but I've never ever heard of a Republican trying to get rid of your gas stove because it might cause asthma. Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. Let's see, where was I? Oh, yeah, schools. Speaking of drag schools, or drag shows in schools, a bill filed in Little Rock, Arkansas, in the Little Rock Senate would define a drag performance as an adult-oriented business and place restrictions on where they could take place. Senate Bill 43, sponsored by Arkansas Senator Gary Stubblefield and Representative Mary Bentley, adds drag performance to the list of adult-oriented businesses in the Arkansas Code, which includes adult cabarets, adult theaters, or nude model studios. The bill goes on to define a drag performance as something where a performer, quote, exhibits a gender identity that is different from the performer's gender assigned at birth using clothing, makeup, or other accessories that are traditionally worn by members of and are meant to exaggerate the gender identity of the performer's opposite sex, unquote. That's pretty accurate, actually. The thing about it is this: it is adult activity. Let it be adult activity. If you have never seen The Birdcage, watch The Birdcage. It's brilliant. It's funny. It absolutely is. But it's not something that I would show my elementary school kid. As a matter of fact, being a scrapper, I might have a physical conflict with somebody who tried to show that to one of my kids. Mainly one of my size 12 feet, impacting their ever-expanding liberal butt. And once again, please keep in mind, I am not blind to the fact that Republicans have crazy ideas too. Once again, I've never seen a Republican advocate for having a drag show in an elementary school. All right, so there's that. And now, let's move to the academy. Oklahoma State University has found themselves being sued by a college free speech advocacy organization over policies that they argue deter, suppress, and punish students for constitutionally protected speech regarding political and social issues. Speech First filed a lawsuit against OSU challenging 3 of its speech policies they claim are designed to chill and silence student speech, which is in turn a violation of the First and 14th Amendment rights of students, according to the lawsuit. These policies not only force students to censor themselves when they interact with one another, but they also put students in the mindset that they should be offended by the opinions of others they disagree with, and that by committing the offense of being biased, while most of us may just called being opinionated, warrants disciplinary action against you. Yeah. So the place for free speech, inquiry, challenge, all of that. America's Academy, the colleges and university system, now being a crucible of violation of the First Amendment. They're going to win that lawsuit. OSU, better get out the checkbook. This is the Wells Report. I'll be back with more coming up in just 1 little minute. Oh, okay, 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. If you like this broadcast, you find any value in it, share it. Give us a thumbs up or a like on whatever platform you're on. Make a comment or two. Would you do that for me, please? And if you'd like to support the show financially, go to patreon.com/The Wells Report. $1 or $2 a month. It helps. Every little bit helps. It really would be good if you could help us out with that. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see. What do we got here? Oh, yeah. Natural gas was supposed to be the cleanest. It is. but not clean enough for the woke greenies. By the way, the particulate matter that they're talking about is something less than 10 microns. You know the dust you see floating around in your house? You don't have dust floating around in your house? I'm the only one? Those are about 150, 175 microns. Okay? So what they're asking for is people breathing antiseptically pure air all the time, something that not even hospitals can give you. It is boneheaded on its face. 10 microns is the particulate matter that they consider to be harmful to your health. Keep something in mind. An amoeba is 800 by 400 microns. Okay, just keep that plain. Let's see. Natural gas was supposed to be the cleanest, but not clean enough for woke greenies. Okay, yeah. Let's see. They also sell the crap out of LNG, an unsafe fuel. Well, it's only unsafe if it explodes. By the way, did you know that LNG is propane? Did you know that? Let's see. Gavin says, propane wall heater is my primary heat source in my little house on the prairie. USDA approved. Yeah. Well, when it comes to politics, not even the USDA stands a chance. Mike says, I've always found nuclear energy interesting. I saw the China syndrome a bunch of times as a kid. By the way, did you know the China syndrome was wrong? We know exactly what happens when a nuclear reactor melts down. Chernobyl did not go all the way to the core of the earth. There's this big glob of highly radioactive goo that is solidified that sits under the reactor. Something that wouldn't happen in an American reactor because of a containment building. So the China syndrome was essentially a ghost story because people said, my God, this is dangerous. Don't get me wrong. Nuclear reactors are dangerous. I really have a problem with anything that you can't turn your back on. And you cannot turn your back on a nuclear reactor. You have to watch it constantly. You absolutely do. Let's see. Let's Talk says, hey, you know, the digital currency transition should be fun. We're already in it. I hardly carry cash anymore. I use my debit card for everything. So I've kind of already made the transition. Let's see. Hello, friends. By the way, do I know you? Let's Talk. Let's see, Gavin. My sister has one. I like them. I thought of installing one or two. What are you talking about? A propane heater? They're great. I grew up in a propane household. This ain't the radio. Cuss it up. Did I say radio? Sorry. Don't bring your kid to a strip show or a drag show for cultural enrichment. Thank you, says Mike. Instead of drag queens reading books to little kids, we need parents reading the Bible to their little kids, or just parents reading books to little kids. Let's see. I don't know which congresswoman you're talking about. Let's Talk, but I will do some research and we'll have it tomorrow. Make sure you join us again. Let's see. Okay, Chris Grimes said that Mary Taylor, did the Congresswoman Mary Taylor Greene of Georgia really say that thing about Jewish space lasers? I'll double check it. Let's see. And Chris said, yes, it was MTG. Let's see. What else have we got here? Chris Grimes. Chris, by the way, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see what else. I've never used a wood-burning stove. Oh, yes, that's right. When they were talking about buying wood-burning stoves. Yeah, I like them. Thought about installing one or two. My son has a wood pellet smoker barbecue. That's impressive because you can actually have solid control over the temperature. My barbecue runs propane, in case you're wondering. Let's see what else. I've got to double check that MTG quote, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay. I don't know. I'll find out. I don't have time to do it right now. Used to use a wood-burning stove, but was brought up with a gas stove. Wouldn't mind having one again, but I'm in an all-electric neighborhood. Yeah, that's why I don't live in all-electric neighborhoods. Let's see. Wells probably has the facts. Thank you. Let's Talk. I appreciate that. I'm male, 5'10", 160. I'm 22, black hair, brown eyes, single. I'm a uniparty kind of guy. Okay. All right. What happened? That's what happened in Fukushima, wasn't it? Yes. But they had a containment building, so it never got outside the containment building. Strangely enough, the reason that the Fukushima nuclear accident happened was because the emergency power supplies that kept everything going when there was a disaster were outside the containment building. I did say assets. Yes, I did. By the way, before we go, I want to bring something up here. I want to tell you that that we lost someone. We lost Diamond, Lynette Hardaway, Diamond of the pro-Trump duo Diamond and Silk. She died. She was only 51 years old. Diamond and Silk. A couple of people that said it their way. Regular folk standing up for the people of the United States. And we lost Diamond. Lynette Hardaway, rest in peace. Another voice of American freedom and liberty still. God bless you and her family. That's the Wells Report for today. Hope you enjoyed it. See you again tomorrow. Okay. Let's see. We're outside the containment building. That's correct. But the containment will hold the reactor and the reaction. Yes. Yeah. So let's talk. Since you're here, how long have you been watching the Wells Report and what do you think? You're a Uniparty guy. Thank you for the shout outs today. It perked my spirits. Good, Mike. Well, yeah, man, I'm interested in what you have to say. So let's talk. What do you think of the show? Where'd you find it? Tell us about yourself. Kurt Chase. Let's talk. Moved the show. What? Huh? What do you mean, Kurt? By the way, the guy who has the deepest voice in the world is Kurt Chase. Hi, I'm Kurt Chase. Anyway, let's talk. Move the show. What do you mean? About 2 hours. It's been fun. I enjoy your passion. Thanks. Let's talk. So this is your first day? This is your first day on the Wells Report? Left KRLD. Let's Talk is a radio talk show performer? Huh? What? I'm confused now. By the way, for those of you watching on Rumble and YouTube, Rumble and Patreon, I do this every now and then. I just sort of hang. First time here. How'd you find us? Let's Talk. How did you find us? Ironic, an anti-vaxxer probably dies from COVID. Ooh, yeah. Well, Chris, I got to tell you, I got the shots, I got the booster, and I got COVID. All right. It wasn't the shots. It wasn't the shots that bugged me. Okay. It wasn't the shots that bugged me. It was the imposition of the shots that bugged me. Okay. People get to choose in this country. The Fourth Amendment says you have a right to be secure in your persons. Just happened to run into you on YouTube. YouTube recommended it. I was watching some random political show. Well, I hope you come back. Let's talk. And thanks very much for doing so. And even though you're a Uniparty guy, that's okay. This is not a Republican show. This is a constitutional conservative show. I fired the Republican Party years ago. I criticized them just as much as I criticized Democrats. Anyway, welcome to the show. Let's talk. It's good to have you here. Let's see. Kurt, I'm going to call you on the phone as soon as I get finished with all this falderall. Does anybody have anything else? Are there any alibis? No, he says they're all Uniparty. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk. I hope you come back. We're here every day between 2 and 5. Give us a like. Give us a like and do us a favor. Subscribe to the show. You found us on YouTube, right? Subscribe. We'd love to have you. And tell me what you think of the broadcast. Of course, that's true with everybody. There you go. Alibis going twice. By the way, Harvey Weinstein has repealed his conviction of rape. Okay. I'm getting blank comment fields. Does anybody know why that is? And then her sister Silk grifts soon after her death. Oh, I don't know. YouTube recommended you. That is a good thing. That's outstanding. What did Kurt Chase just say? What did Kurt Chase just say? Kurt Chase was just giving me boarding, call you tomorrow. Shark. I said shark. All right. So yeah, that is a good thing. I'm glad that YouTube recommended me to someone. All right, y'all. I got to get going. I got to put this up on Rumble and Patreon and YouTube. So God bless all y'all. He left KRLD. He did. Why? He's on a news station. I wonder which one it is. He's going to call me tomorrow, and I'll tell you. By the way, Kurt Chase has the best automotive show since Ed Wallace retired. I'm telling you. All right, DB, adios. Take good care. God bless all y'all. Seriously. Thanks for joining us. Okay? Thank you for being here. Take good care. Have yourself a nice night. Be safe.